Good afternoon. It's good to have you listening to a special conversation that we have filmed today with Esther Friedrichs, and the interview has been conducted by Hannah Donigan and filmed by me. You know, in Japan, there's a special designation that's given to elders who become certified as preservers of important and tangible cultural properties, or living national treasures. These elders may be artists or writers or carriers of stories that embody what is important in Japanese culture, which is the foundation of family and society. So the Universalist Unitarian Church of Farmington decided to use their good fortune of having many elders in our beloved community to be guest speakers for a series of conversations. We might consider our elders as living treasures as well. Today's message is the second in a series from the Sunday Service Committee that gives us some insight into how some of our elder members became involved in Unitarian Universalism, as well as their perspectives on life, current events, and more. And so as you listen to this conversation with Esther Friedrichs and Hannah Donigan, we hope that the particulars of her message will encourage you to think about your own spiritual journey and those connections to your ancestors that had religious beliefs that were open and passionate enough for you to consider being a Unitarian Universalist. From the book, The Measure of My Days, Florida Scott Maxwell describes what I think comes across in Esther's interview. There is a place that exists deep inside of me, Florida explains, that is beyond just a regular place of seeing somebody that might be drab outside, but has a place of fierce energy inside. Perhaps passion would be a better word than an energy, for the sad fact is that this vivid life cannot be used up totally. If I try to transpose it into action, I am soon spent. It has to be accepted as a passionate life. Perhaps the life I never lived, never guessed I had in it to live. It feels other and more than that. It feels like the far side of aim. Yes, it was just a life, but it had a natural intensity. And when old, we have it for our reward. And that is where we lead in to our special conversation today. May you ask yourself questions. How involved were my grandparents in their religious communities? How did their beliefs have an impact on my parents and therefore an impact on me? What was going on in the world during those years that my parents gave me a basis and a foundation for religious belief? And what values do I believe in that coincide and connect to my Unitarian Universalist story? Thank you, Esther. Thank you, Hannah. May you enjoy our service this morning. as we take this moment to pause and move into a time of silence and reflection, may we hear the words of Mary Oliver's Sunrise in a new way that applies to the examples in our life. You can die for it, an idea or the world. People have done so brilliantly, letting their small bodies be bound on the stake, creating an unforgettable flurry of light. But this morning, climbing the familiar hills in the familiar fabric of the dawn, I thought of China, of India, of Europe, of California. I thought how the sun blazes for everyone, just so joyfully as it rises under the lashes of my own eyes. And I thought, I am so many. What is my name? What is the name of the deep breath I would take over and over for all of us? Call it whatever you want. It is happiness. It is another one of the ways to enter fire. In this moment, think of those things that bring you happiness. Think of those things that you would bring to others to bring them happiness. Think of the calm and the peaceful moment of silence that brings us happiness in this time, in this now.
Esther, it's such a wonderful privilege to be sitting chatting with you today. And there's that nice smile. I have a few questions about Unitarian Universalism, and maybe you could help us know more about you and that faith that you follow. How did you first learn about Unitarian Universalists?
I lived in Burlington, Vermont, and the Unitarian Church was just one block away from our house. And my father did not go to church except for church suppers when he was a social guest in a way.
Yes.
My mother had been a Methodist, but she wasn't really going to continue that. And we children, I have one sister, went to the Congregational church because that's where our friends went.
Okay. Well then, but you learned about it. Okay. Well then, why did you become regular in UUism, even though you had the Methodist background and so forth?
I never went to the Methodist church.
But your mother was.
My mother went.
Right.
My father said to her, if you have to go to church, the only church to go to is the Unitarian church.
Oh, okay. So, well, when did you become regular in a UU attendance? What church was that? What first UU church did you attend?
Burlington, Vermont.
Oh, it was in Burlington. Okay, in Vermont,
Yeah.
the same. Okay.
I also went first to the Congregational church.
Nice.
Because my friends did.
Sure.
It was a peer thing.
Well, and also it's quite a free-thinking church, a Congregational too.
Yes.
Pretty much, you know.
It was a very popular church.
Yes.
So
Yeah, that's
in
wonderful.
Burlington.
Right. Now you brought your children all up in the UU tradition and the faith of the Universalist Unitarians.
they all came from there. We went to Scotia, New York,
New York.
and there was a UU church there,
Mhm.
and my children went there, as did I.
How many children?
6.
6, okay. And was you lived there in New York because of a job for your husband had a job?
Yes, he
Mhm.
was in the public schools.
Yes, okay. And so was he a principal there? Is that where he was?
He was principal of a high school in Scotia, New York.
Okay, and how long time in New York? Were you there? Quite a long time? Or?
Quite a while. Perhaps, I'm not sure.
Uh-huh, okay.
At least 6 years.
Okay, well that's fine. So you have those fine memories there too of
Yes.
the early you and your children?
When he came home and said he had been asked to apply for a job there, he was at the time taking graduate courses at Columbia in New York, Columbia University.
Uh-huh.
And I actually cried and said, I don't want to leave here. And he said, oh, we'll only be there about 5 years. And this is 60 years.
Well, you know, you've always had Vermont in your heart. I know you when you went there in the summers, and you still. What's your favorite? One of your favorite places?
Part of a family group that owned a cottage on Lake Champlain.
Yes, I remember because I used to send sermons to you sometime during the
Yes.
summer when I would speak as a guest speaker at our church. Yeah. So, what personal values or attitudes or understandings about life that help bring you to the Unitarian Universalist ideology or system?
Well, I like the fact that they were happy to have as members people who had been active in other churches, such as Judaism or Catholicism or what. And I like the idea of humanism.
Yes, very much so. Well, you know, we're core soulmates there too, and a lot of people in our church also. But I think, like you, that the reminder of the symbols in our church just show you the acceptance of any belief system, which is really important because it's right for us, and whatever's right for the other person, we accept that, and the differences, and yet so much the similarity. It's all about love, isn't it? Really, the attitudes and all about love.
And social justice.
Yeah, absolutely, social justice, which we're coming around in 2020 to really live by that social justice idea, slowly but surely. But I think this is a year that we're going to see a rise in that acceptance of other people. We can only hope so. But yes, and you were so active. What position did you have? What did you serve in the Farmington UU Church? I mean, were you on a certain committee or different committees?
Well, when I was much younger, I was active in the Sunday school.
Yes.
I think 1 year I was head of a group of teachers in the Sunday school.
You probably were, yes. Probably the head of the education.
We came to here in 1959.
59. And the building was right in downtown Farmington.
Oh yes, the church was in downtown Farmington.
So you recall when it was moved.
Yes.
I've seen pictures of that. That must have been something to really see. To move that church, you know.
Oh, it was. I watched them from 2 different places. I watched them, and then I got in the car and drove further up so I could see them again when they moved it.
Barbara Windsor talks about that too. You
Yeah.
know, and I'm sure others who were there. Maybe Virginia remembers that. I'm sure she does. You know, it was.
Well, she likes Vermont because she and her husband were bicyclists,
Oh,
and they bicycle all around Vermont.
you mean Barbara Windsor
Barbara
and her husband? Yes, they were. Yeah, they went all over the world with their bicycles, didn't they? In their youth, young days.
I don't know, but she talked to me about Vermont.
Yes. Well, it's a beautiful state, you know, like Michigan, and it has the different seasons, you know, with the colors and so forth. But it is a beautiful state. And what helps you continue to come back to the UU ideas? And you mentioned some of the things that brought you to that belief system, but so what keeps you coming back right now in the 2000 years that we're in?
Well, I don't know many people right now, but the people I meet are very accepting of whatever your religion is,
Right.
or not religion.
Absolutely.
You can be part of a church and believe in humanism and social justice and things that make completion in your own life
Right.
to be active in.
That's right. And we're having a bunch of new families with young children, which is always a hopeful sign,
Yes.
because everybody is aging in many churches. And so, I think that we're very lucky to have a minister that supports that idea of children and young families, as well as we old folks, right? She's all around good for every age group, right, Leonetta? So,
And I kind of like the idea that she is only sort of half-time, and we have guest speakers
nice.
like Paul,
Hmm.
what's Paul's last name?
Bailey,
Yes, Paul Bailey.
and who
And
sometimes,
you,
uh-huh.
so
I'm teasing.
you're a humanism.
Right, yeah, I'm a humanist, yeah. And
So I think it's nice to have a variety.
it is, yes.
It
one
is.
one young man recently talked about his anxiety. It was a very personal thing for him to reveal about himself, and it was just excellent. And then, well, they've all been good, and so we're lucky from our own church to have good speakers, but anybody that's recommended from other churches, maybe there or
Yes.
UU churches, or yeah, we're very lucky to have good speakers like that. Yeah, so that's fantastic. So we would like to know some wisdom or guidance, because you've lived such a wonderful long life, and I just wondered, what are some of those guiding principles for our congregation, especially since we're living in a very divisive time today in the political sense, and in our country having been pulled apart for instead of brought together for our diversity. What are some guiding principles that give you hope that we will come together and be one country in acceptance of everybody, no matter the ethnicity or the religion or the race? What would be the guiding thing that gives us hope that things will get better and stay better?
Well, that's a tough question.
Well, I know, but you've lived a long life, and you mentioned some things before that brought you to Unitarian Universalism, but
I like the fact that there are many different branches of beliefs or even non-beliefs
Right.
In our church,
that's right.
and acceptance of everyone, and they do not have to be beliefs in Christianity. It could be beliefs in humanism. It could be just acceptance of people, whatever their
Yeah.
thoughts are.
Yes.
I think it's a provocative church too, that some of the speakers give you, lead you on a little bit and make you think a little bit.
Absolutely. They
So-
do. They keep our brains active and keep questioning ourselves and strengthening ourselves, and that everybody is right for that person. You know, I feel that whatever somebody believes, that's right for them, and whatever I believe or don't believe
Yes,
is right
I
for me.
believe that other people should be, have acceptance and honor regardless of what their beliefs are.
Absolutely. And you've lived your life, and I know it that way, and I think your children, I'm sure, have lived that life and have gained so much from you and your husband. And he was an educator, and that was, he spent his whole life in that field, didn't he?
Yes.
In
Yes.
education,
Yes, he
which
was.
is really today one of our concerns that we have to work with through this pandemic of coronavirus. But hopefully each school district will try to do what's
And
best.
the latter part of his career, he worked with adults with the, only it was outside of schools, really.
Oh.
It was with, I don't know what they called
Oh,
it.
Community education.
What?
Community education.
Communication.
Oh, community education, that's right. Oh, he did with adults. Maybe they were they from another country, or they just hadn't had a complete education maybe, and he helped them go further?
I think whatever church you go to, it is provocative. You know, I think it's one that increases your thinking a little bit.
Absolutely. That's what we need, keep our minds active. You
Yeah.
know, our bodies may, get tired, but if we keep our minds active, that helps, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely. We have to smile, we have to laugh.
Hannah, could you ask Esther about her commitment to physical education and
Oh,
keeping the
oh yes. I didn't realize this, but you know a lot about physical education, and so I'll ask you some questions about that, keeping our body healthy, as well as we keep our mind healthy, keeping our body active.
Yes, at this point, I'm 99 years old, and I walk poorly. I can't walk without walkers, and my chief thing that I like to use is when you go out, you see the bicycle in the house, and that uses both your arms and your legs.
That's wonderful.
And it's better than walking for me, because walking in less than 50 yards, I begin to get tremors.
Oh, okay.
And on the bike, I can bike. You see the bike when you go in the house, I can bicycle 15 or 20 minutes and not get tremors. I don't know why it is, but
Oh,
it's
that's
true.
wonderful. Well, I'm going to look into that. I mean, I'm aging too, and but if you're my role model. I want to be you. I always tell you that at church. I want to be you, and so. But I will look into that for future reference about that type of machine, and I will notice it for sure.
And I also wanted my children to grow up participating in any religious thing they want to, and they have. My daughter Linda is a Presbyterian, correct? And so what's Sarah do?
She's
What?
Unitarian.
She's a Unitarian, and my son Mark is a Unitarian in Maryland, and very active in it. Both he and his wife, and she was a Catholic previously, but she still is.
Okay.
She still is, and Mark accepts that.
Sure.
It's, she can be a Catholic, he can be a Unitarian,
Sure.
and they're happy about it. Mark has been in our church too, but his wife Julie goes to the Catholic church still, and they seem to get along quite well, right?
And your son Dave
Very well.
is,
And Dave goes to the Ann Arbor Unitarian Church.
and I've had a pleasure of speaking with him a lot. I've had a pleasure.
But I can't drive anymore.
Yeah.
They don't, because I get tremors,
Okay.
and it's not safe to have me drive because it's not doing it now. But sometimes I would be driving and it would go crazy.
Sure.
So
Well,
I would be a danger on the road.
Also you have Dave's son is married to somebody very important in Michigan politics, right?
Yes.
Jocelyn Benson.
Mm-hmm.
That's your granddaughter-in-law, correct?
Yeah.
and she's doing a tremendous job with Governor Whitmer. And see, women know, don't they? I mean, when women have power, they know. And I think we're very, that she's one of our leaders in Michigan.
Well, I think Linda is a wonderful person.
Absolutely. Oh yeah.
And she's very serious about her religion. And
Yes.
that's fine with me.
A lot of people, I think, use in particular, really work for social justice. That's one of, like you mentioned earlier, that's very much a part of being a UU. And so, no matter what religion or where they're located, they can work for social justice for everybody. So, and you are a perfect living example of that. And as I say, I want to be you every time I see you.
I think it was partly my parents, because my mother and father were quite different in their beliefs, but it continued in their voting. I can remember them coming back from vote. They always voted, and they'd come back and they didn't tell each other beforehand which they were voting for. And they'd come back and one would have voted for the Republicans and one for the Democrats, and they'd laugh a little bit and say, "That's it."
That's right.
I mean,
That's terrific. Well,
I
so,
wonder if you could ask about the COVID too.
oh yes, okay. Well, many people are wondering. In fact, our children who are in their 50s have said, "What's the worst pandemic or the worst time that you've lived through?" What you've lived through many crises. What is the worst time? The coronavirus now is making everything really very
I think
different.
That's the worst. I was just a child when I was too young to know during the flu. There was a flu something in the early 20s.
Spanish flu.
I was born in 1921, but I was too young to, but I knew that my father and mother believed differently. And I remember him saying, "Well, if you're really going to go to church, try the Unitarian church." And I did. I liked it. And I used to, my mother used to be very active in the nights they had church suppers and putting on church suppers. And my dad would go to church then.
Well, yeah, for the good food. You're noted for
He
the
would
good food.
get to meet the people and know the people she talked about.
Yes.
Did
And
ask her the difference between the war years
Oh.
and COVID?
Yeah, what are the differences that the crises that we've lived through or you've lived through between the war years and this coronavirus thing that we're all experiencing now? Which do you think was worse or the difficult time to live? I mean, the war years compared with coronavirus that we're having now.
well, to me, who was a very, very elderly person, I'm 99, this seems the worst because I know about this. I have one daughter who has taught school forever, and she will even go into a public place these days because she's worried so much about getting it.
Yes, absolutely.
And others, Dave, she's diabetic, and she feels if she got it, she would be sicker and
Yes.
perhaps be one of those who didn't make it.
Right.
However, my son Dave, who comes to church, is also diabetic, and he just lives as usual. He keeps a mask in his pocket, and if he's going in a store where they want you to wear a mask or require it, he pulls it out of his pocket and puts it on to go in the store,
Yeah.
and doesn't wear it otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
But if people are so worried about it, you have to honor that.
Absolutely. And I think many people agree this is the very worst of times. You know, no matter how long you've lived. I mean,
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. Yeah.
It's,
So
see,
we'll get through it. We're all in this together. And
it's scary.
it's very
Some
scary.
of it,
Look at
I've
Hannah.
heard of people who are very lightly, aren't sick more than very lightly. And my daughter in Middlebury, Vermont knows of a couple who both died.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So many.
No wonder she's scared.
Well, absolutely.
Because she's diabetic too.
Sure. Well, we'll get through it. We have to have hope, and we have to have people be sure to vote and take part in the political process, no matter what level, really, whether it's local or national. But you are, well, it's just been a pleasure, and you are, see, I like to see you smile, and we had some nice smiles together. And I just want to say I love you
Thank
very
you.
much, and we all love you, that you're
Thank
you,
you.
Farmington. Thank you so much.
I hope you enjoyed our interview today with Esther Friedrichs and Hannah Donigan being the interviewer. If we take time with our elders and don't just move to the first impressions that we make in a blink of time, we hear their stories at a deeper level. May each of you find an elder to speak to this week and make it a